So check 1, 2.
Brownsburg. Senator Brownsburger is on his way. So, hello, everybody. Welcome here to this lovely room overlooking the subject of our meeting tonight. It's pretty amazing. I'm Ken Carlson. For those who don't know me, I am one of the founders of the BU Bridge Safety Alliance and regional bike and pedestrian advocate. Also a BU alum, so I feel I've got some stake here being an alum. So tonight we are here for this public meeting focused on how we are going to be protecting people on the BU Bridge corridor. And we'll be going into the details of what is this corridor and what are we talking about. But just to lay out the agenda for the night, so obviously I'm speaking and we'll be presenting welcome and introductory remarks. Then we'll be followed by Peter Firth, who is another co-founder of the BU Bridge Safety Alliance and a professor of engineering at Northeastern University. He'll be talking about our recommended improvements. And then we're going to be followed by brief stakeholder perspectives. Brendan Kearney, executive director of Walk, Massachusetts, will be speaking about the pedestrian experience. Jerry Zhao, who's the president of the BU Urbanists and a BU undergrad, will be giving the perspective of BU students who we see crossing right now over that crosswalk. And then Galen Mook, executive director of Mass Bike, and a person who's been very involved in the Alliance, will be giving the perspective of bicyclists. And then we'll be joined by our colleagues from local agencies and municipalities, sharing their progress and their plans for improving this corridor. And so we're very excited to have Jason Santos online. He's the Director of Transportation Design and Engineering, and AJ Turini, the Ombudsman, people we've been working very closely with, as well as John Monticelli. He's a Principal Transportation Engineer with the City of Boston Transportation Department. We've also been working closely with BTD. And Ben Miller, who is here in his street clothes. And he's from Mass DOT, and he'll be sharing just a few words of support. And then we'll be following this up with hopefully a robust question and answer period. So thank you all very much for coming out here. And we also have, how many people on Zoom, Crystal? Quite a few?
41.
Okay, so we've got quite a few people in attendance. Great, thank you all for being here. So this is a hybrid Zoom meeting. So for you guys, just take 20 seconds and chill out. But so online guests are welcome, and we have 2 presenters online. The meeting is being recorded. We'll share the recording. 2 of our speakers are participating virtually. Please use the chat function. Please hold your questions until after the presentations if you're here in person. And Crystal Huth, another member of the Alliance, is our Zoom moderator. Thank you, Crystal. And they'll be available via the chat function if you need help. So on to the meeting. So we are going to begin this meeting with a moment of silence for road traffic victims this year. This is the ghost bike of John Corcoran, who was killed just across the river. And just a few moments of silence for John and other road traffic victims. In that theme, November 17th, this Sunday, is the annual World Day of Remembrance, and that's across the world. It's going to be, I want to use the word celebrated, recognized here in Boston on Sunday. And it's the World Day of Remembrance for road traffic victims. There's also going to be, in coordination with that, Ride for Your Life, which is being sponsored by a number of organizations. And it's going to be a bike ride that starts at 11 a.m. It's going basically from the Cambridge Common to the Boston Common. So it's going to start at the Cambridge Common, 11 a.m. on Sunday. So the goals for tonight's meeting are, one is to share the BU Bridge Safety Alliance's recommendations for improving traffic safety on this BU Bridge corridor. We're going to hear from our state agencies and the City of Boston about their ongoing and planned safety improvements. They have become good partners with the Alliance, and we're excited to hear from them. We want to hear from you all. We want to hear from members of the public about their questions and concerns. I forgot to mention that I'm a BU alum, and I live in Cambridge, work in Fenway, and I bike across this bridge every day. And the only place I've been knocked off my bicycle by a car is in that rotary when I was an undergrad. So I have very strong ties to this bridge in this area. And we want to encourage members of the public to stay engaged. So sign up for email updates from the Alliance. There's a clipboard back there if you want to write your name down, or just my email address, kencarlson8@gmail.com, or just talk to us afterwards. We'll sign you up. So, but we'll try to keep everyone up to date with what's been happening. I want to thank the members of the Alliance, who many of them are here, our colleagues at DCR, MassDOT, and City of Boston, everyone for showing up today. Boston University, particularly the Department of Transportation, who helped set this up for us tonight, and the school itself. Members of the press, Boston.com is online, and I believe we're expecting Streets Blog Mass to be here as well. And then elected officials. So we've had a couple of elected officials who've been very involved in this effort, and I want to really call out Senator Brownsberger, who was instrumental in helping us advocate for widening the sidewalk, the narrow sidewalk between the bridge and the boathouse. So, Senator, do you want to say a couple of words if you like? And maybe come up to the microphone, just.
I'll just say quickly, thank you, Ken, for your advocacy on these issues. I want to say I'm, for those who don't know me, I'm Will Brownsberger. I'm state senator. I represent this district. My district goes that way to Fenway and that way out to Belmont and Cambridge. I'm a veteran cyclist. I'm a year-round commuting cyclist. I've bicycled across the country. And for my 18 years in the legislature, cycling safety and generally vulnerable road user safety has been at the top of my agenda. And so I've had the occasion to work with a lot of agencies and a lot of different leaders of the agencies that we now have in place. DCR, MassDOT, I've worked with probably half a dozen, if not more, DCR commissioners on these issues. I've worked with a series of secretaries of transportation. And I do want to say that, for the challenges we have in getting what we need to do done, the folks that are running the show now, I think, are some of the best, that are really listening and trying to do the best they can. And so I want to start, I want people to know that as we enter the difficult conversation about how we keep moving towards a better place. So thank you all for being here, and thank you again, Ken, and the BU Alliance for getting us focused. And thank you, Mike Conley. I guess you'll say hello to next. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Brownsberger. Mike, would love for you to come up and just say a few words as well. If you're going to have to squat down for this microphone.
Thank you, Kevin. I'd associate myself with everything Senator Brownsberger said. We passed the act to reduce traffic fatalities last session in the legislature. I think there's a lot more we can do, including automated traffic enforcement. I think would be an important step forward to make our roads safer. I want to say thank you to Ken, thank you to Stephen, thank you to all these advocates. I want to echo what the senator said. I've had many conversations with DCR and with MassDOT, and I think we do have engineers and planners and administrators who are committed to making progress. It's been great to see some of the progress we've made, but I think we have to make a lot more progress. And so that's why I'm here tonight, and thank you for doing the work. Appreciate it.
Sure. I was really remiss. I was really remiss in not also recognizing the current leadership of the city of Boston and the current leadership of the city of Cambridge, who are incredibly committed to moving this forward. So that's why I'm really hopeful that we're going to get to a better place in this intersection, because it uniquely involves Cambridge, Boston, DCR, MassDOT. Everybody's got to work together.
Totally agree. And thank you, Rep. Connolly. Appreciate it. Representative Mike Connolly. Yeah, I do think it's a unique moment in time here. That stars are aligned, and I think that's why you're starting to see change happen on the corridor, and we're very excited to see what's going to be happening. but we're also vigilant as well to make sure we all work together and make sure everything is followed through on. Any other elected? So we have Adam here who's representing Siobhan. Adam, do you want to say a few words in Siobhan's place?
Jeevan wouldn't have to. Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Campbell-Schwartz. I'm the aide to Cambridge City Councilor Jeevan Sabrina Wheeler. Appreciate everybody being here. And thank you to everyone who worked to set this up. He unfortunately couldn't make it, but is deeply invested in making the BU Bridge and BU Rotary safer and more accessible for all. If he were here today, he would share that he lives actually right up the street on Brookline Avenue. And that he's an avid Cambridge bike commuter who got into an accident a few years ago and lost 2 of his front teeth. So really wants to make sure that streets are safer. And there's been big impact in the city of Cambridge. He's very glad to see that this meeting is happening. Appreciates everyone here to discuss how we can improve the area, and obviously gives his full support to the plans that have been submitted. I'll also be here if people do want to discuss things. Have some cards that I can share, business cards. And Representative Connolly brought up a good point about automated traffic enforcement. It's actually going to be at the city council meeting on Monday in Cambridge. They will be discussing an ordinance proposed that would have to go for a home rule petition. So just wanted to flag that as well if you're a Cambridge resident.
Thank you, Adam. Many of the Cambridge City Councilors couldn't make it tonight because they are attending a conference in Tampa. Yes.
However, we do have Bernhan Azim on the Zoom.
Oh, great. Burhan, would you like to say a few words? Is there somebody else? I'm sorry, another elected in the audience.
Hello. I'll just say I'm happy to be here and also a biker, and just thank you guys for organizing everything. Just excited to tune in.
Great. Thank you, Burhan. Fantastic. Well, thank you. Oh, good. Oh, good. Well, welcome. And you're free to say some words if you like, or, okay, great. Okay, very good. All this can't get done without the cooperation of many, and elected officials are so important in this process. Okay, so very quickly, the BU Bridge Safety Alliance, we formed in January 2023 to address road safety issues on the corridor. It was in response to somebody who said, why aren't there flex posts on the BU Bridge? We're like, oh, okay, we should do that. And then we realized, of course, it's a lot more than just about flex posts. And you can see here, these are the active members of the Alliance. We span many advocacy groups, universities, municipalities, and we've been meeting, working hard for the last 2 years. I want to call out Peter Firth, who'll be speaking later, one of my partners in crime. He's a professor at Northeastern University. And Steve Miller, over here, one of the founders of Livable Streets Alliance and a Cambridgeport resident. 2 people who have been instrumental these last 2 years. I want to call out Galen Mook, standing over here in the corner. He's been working so closely with us on the Alliance and really giving us a lot of great guidance and advice. And then Nathan Phillips, who is in the audience over here, and Carl Larson, who couldn't be here tonight, both from Boston University. Nathan's a professor here, and they've been our kind of eyes and ears on the ground here and helped us get this set up tonight and other things that they've been incredibly helpful with. So really quickly, Peter's going to go into this a lot more detail, but the BU Bridge traffic corridor, as you can see right out this window, very busy place. It's a very narrow bridge. It's only 40 feet. It's the most narrow bridge that crosses the Charles River in the city of Boston. It's got 9 feet sidewalks, a very narrow 5-foot bike lane, a southbound, as you can see, travel lane, 10-foot wide. On the center of the bridge, it's 1 lane. It kind of opens up here as you get to the intersection with Comath. 2 northbound 10-foot travel lanes. And, if we could blow it up and have a bigger bridge, we would love that, right? But that's not going to happen right now. So we've got to work within the cart width that we have. Trying to get this thing from falling down. So both ends have complex traffic conditions. you could see, and Peter will talk about this a lot more. There's a rotary on the Cambridge side, as well as the Reed overpass. Thank you. And of course, the Paul Dudley White bike path that traverses the kind of mouth of the BU Bridge as you head into Cambridge. Very crazy dynamics if you're walking, biking, or driving. And on this side, as we're looking at over the Ave intersection, you can see it's a very complicated intersection. A lot of moving parts, a lot of pedestrians, a lot of cyclists, a lot of cars, a lot of turning cars. Peter will go into detail on that. And then the corridor itself. So the corridor is not just the bridge, right? It's the rotary, it's the Ave intersection. On the bridge itself, 40,000 cars a day, 2,000 bikes a day, pedestrians, thousands per day. 2 MBTA bus routes. Those buses crawl through the corridor. Several shuttle bus routes. Many more people traverse the travel corridors parallel to the bridge. The Paul Dudley bike ped path. Many people traverse that path, and they cut across that mouth of the bridge, and it's very dicey for anybody walking or running. And obviously we have all cars on them drive, cars on Ave. And the big kind of the root of the difficulty of this bridge and this corridor is that it's multi-jurisdictional, as Senator Brownsberger was saying. DCR owns Memorial Drive, the river paths, and the rotary. MassDOT owns the bridge and Ave intersection. City of Boston operates the traffic signals right here. MBTA operates the bus service over the bridge. We have Becca Wolfson here from the MBTA. City of Cambridge owns the streets and approaching bridge. Are the people from Transportation Cambridge here? Yep, there we go. Hello, guys, good to see you. And Town of Brookline owns the street to the south. Anybody from Brookline? Oh, hey, Amy. Oh, how you doing? Good to see you. So obviously it's multi-jurisdictional, which makes getting things done on such a corridor difficult. So what we did was we brought together this alliance. We pulled together this impressive group of advocates who were undaunted with the multi-jurisdictionality of the corridor. And we really kind of the goal was to identify traffic safety improvements with a primary focus on vulnerable road users. But we gave ourselves these constraints. The bridge is not going to get any bigger. So we proposed no change to the number of travel lanes. We didn't want to make traffic worse for local residents in Cambridgeport. But we wanted to, and with that, we wanted to maintain, if not improve, the vehicle throughput. People in Cambridgeport are already suffering enough, but we wanted to focus on quick build, low cost improvements to improve safety. So we spent our first year working with these constraints and developing and honing recommendations, which Peter will walk us through. And then we spent this past year socializing these improvements, gaining feedback, and then pushing for implementation. We shared these recommendations with DCR, MassDOT, BTD, MBTA, Cambridge, Brookline, BU, and a host of other advocacy organizations and neighborhood associations. We circulated a petition last year. We got 850 signatures to date. We haven't done anything with that. I'm sure we'd have thousands more if we kept pushing it. We held our first public meeting on the BU campus last year, and now we're meeting with you all this evening. And I want to point out, though, that we've worked very closely with DCR. DCR has been really amazing in terms of their receptivity to what we've been proposing. And we've had a number of meetings with them. In fact, Peter and I were just meeting with DCR last Tuesday, a week ago Tuesday. So multiple meetings, but I want to call out Senator Brownsberger because he helped get the ball rolling. He helped us initiate that very first meeting that got things rolling. And he helped us really advocate for widening that narrow sidewalk between the bridge and the boathouse. And then we've been working with DCR iteratively on plans on the Paul Dudley White bike path to make that as wide as we can and as safe as we can. And it's great to see some of the implementations already happening of our recommendations. So it's been a great partnership. BTD, we've had many meetings with BTD, with their engineers, really focused on signal timing optimization. And you're going to hear from John Monticelli about some of the changes that you'll see at this intersection that will make things a lot better, safer for pedestrians and bicyclists and even automobile traffic to move cars through the intersection faster. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to the real expert here, Peter Firth, who has really driven the engineering aspects of what you'll be hearing tonight. So, Peter.
Thanks, Ken. I'm just thrilled to be here. To me, this is the project that shouldn't be happening because of all the multi-jurisdictional, it's so easy for, organization one to say, well, organization to, but it's happening at a pace that amazes me. All right, so I'm giving an overview. Partly it's for the different partners to see what everybody else is doing. It started out, like Ken said, somebody said, why don't we have protected bike lanes on the BU Bridge? But then we quickly realized, well, we need to change the intersections to reduce conflicts, and then we can make things better for pedestrians. And while we're at it, we can make things better for everybody. So, Ken already made the point how we want to reduce congestion also. It's not that common that you hear the bicycling advocates saying we want to reduce congestion, but the buses that come across that bridge in the PM peak, they are suffering 6 minutes, sometimes 13 minutes of delay. And, buses should get better priority than that. Our friends who live in Cambridgeport, they know that in the afternoon, sometimes the traffic backs up, not just in the rotary, it backs up, then going back into the Cambridgeport neighborhoods. And if you live on one of those streets, so you can get it might take you 20 minutes to get out of your neighborhood. And that's not good for them. And we want to also reduce crashes. So for bike safety, as I've said, there isn't a protected bike lane, but it's not just, it's easy to focus on what's on the bridge. But when you get off the bridge, we have these conflicts with right turning cars. So you can see over here when pedestrians are crossing Com Ave, at the same time they're crossing, cars from Com Ave are turning right. Sometimes 300 an hour are turning right, trying to get through. And then on the other side of the bridge, when bikes are trying to get through, leaving the bridge, going into Cambridge, cars are turning right at the same time, 496 an hour. It's amazing. So, and then the massive congestion makes things slow, as I've mentioned. And there are a lot of crashes and injuries. The last time we studied this, we looked at this 5-year period, and there were 87 crashes, including 15 bike and 2 pedestrian crashes. And most of the largest number in the rotary, 55 in the rotary. So our proposal is kind of comprehensive. We want to fix things everywhere for everybody. For bike safety, it includes protected bike lanes, signal separation, a wider paths along Mem Drive, and safety improvements to the rotary. For pedestrian safety and service, the signal separation I've talked about, some crossings across Com Ave, and synchronized ped crossings at Mem Drive. If you see those red asterisks there, we've gone through a few iterations. So our first iteration, we wanted to make things better for pedestrians by making things a little bit better. We had a plan to make things a little bit better. And then Boston looked at our ideas and they said, well, we have an idea. We can make things a lot better. And when we saw that, we like, totally, yes, you got a great idea. So our concept has changed and to go along with that, and relieving congestion. So to make it safer for bikes, everybody knows the current situation. There are no protected bike lanes. And what we've learned is you can turn a bike lane that's not, if it's not next to a parking lane, you can just put a little barrier there. And even flex posts work because they make it so that bicyclists really feel this is a place cars stay out of. Car drivers just, and we have it already on the Museum of Science Bridge, which Mass DOT owns. People say, oh, well, the bike lanes on the BU Bridge are so narrow, it wouldn't fit there. Well, thank you to our friends in Brookline. They did an experiment. They put flex posts like this on Harvard Street in Coolidge Corner, which is even narrower than the BU Bridge bike lane. And when you ride your bike through there, yeah, you get the feeling this is kind of narrow, but you just ride through and you don't have cars double parked there. You don't have, you really are separate from cars. So when we asked our friends at Mass DOT, is this something that you would consider doing? You've done it on one bridge. Is this something you consider doing on the BU Bridge? I said, yeah, sure. Oh, okay. All right. Number 2, Now, a little more thorny is getting that signal separation when you're leaving the bridge. I described to you the situation on the Cambridge side where, and the problem is that cars have 2 lanes, and from the rightmost car lane, some cars are going through, but some cars are going right. So what we propose to change it to is change it so that only 1 lane is for through-going cars and 1 lane is for right-turning cars. And that way, the right-turning cars, they get their time in the cycle, green right arrow, and bikes and pedestrians will have stop, you don't go. And then the right turns, their turn is over, and then pedestrians and bikes get their turn. So bikes and pedestrians will go with free from traffic. If you think, oh, but there won't be enough capacity for cars because of the right turns. Well, remember, when you're turning right, you really can't go through pedestrians anyway, and bicyclists. And it turns out there's plenty of capacity. About more cars go straight through than turn right. Well, we just make the light will be green longer for cars going through than for cars that are going right. So there'll actually be plenty of capacity there. When the last time the BU Bridge got major improvements around 2012, some of you were like me, were involved back then. They did some really huge improvements for the pedestrians walking along Comm Ave. They did some really nice improvements for the bike lanes along Comm Ave and protecting bikes from right turns along Comm Ave. But they just sort of, this is too big a problem to deal with the other direction. So now we're getting to the other direction and we can deal with it. It's way beyond the standards and yeah, we're just going to deal with it. Third way to make it safer for bikes is when you cross the BU Bridge and then you start heading up the ramp toward the BU Boathouse, toward MIT and Kendall Square. It's this narrow sidewalk. Bicyclists are often have to go in the street because there's no room for them on the sidewalk, and it's just a question of give cars the space they need and nothing more. Cars need a space for 1 lane. They don't need anything more. So this whole area, did you see that animation that comes up there? This whole area that cars don't need, that should just be turned into sidewalk. And I'm happy to say that right now, our friends at DCR, their shovels are in the ground. They're doing that as they started a couple weeks ago. And likewise on the Memorial Drive path, the Paul Dudley Way path, upriver from the bridge, that's going to be made really nice and wide. I did, the slide isn't here, but there we had a too narrow shared use path and a narrow bike lane. And we said, if you made a nice wide bike path, we wouldn't really need a bike lane. So, oh yeah. So we're going to get a nice wide path. And then the last thing for safer for bikes, we need some more fixes in the rotary. Like when you come down the ramp from Memorial Drive, there had been a yield sign. Yield signs are for freeways. You're coming down to a city street. At city streets, what do you have? You have stop signs. So, and on top of that, there's this big bridge pier. You can see the big brick pier. So car drivers can't see who's coming. And you don't want to combine that with a yield sign. You need to stop so you can look and see. So our friends at the DCR said, yeah, no problem. You're right. Stop signs. Bingo. Here we go. And several other changes. So we'll be hearing from DCR later. Some things they're able to do now. The rest of the things we're working with them toward implementing next year. Then when we get to the Comm Ave intersection here, we're going to have signal separation. So the way it is right now, if you're walking across this crosswalk, while you're walking, there are hundreds of cars an hour that are turning at the same time, and you're competing with them. So how we're going to change it? We'll have a short phase just for right turns. Oh, and you see how the lanes are right now. There's one lane, one through lane, and the next lane is also for through traffic. That's going to change. There are going to be 2 lanes turning right. So first thing we do is we have a short turn phase to just clear out whatever cars are in there. Then we have a nice long phase where through cars can go and the bikes can go and the pedestrians can go, but the right turns are stopped. And then when the pedestrians have cleared and everything, then the right, and during that time, anybody who's turning right just moves over and stacks up in these lanes. We got room to store them, and then out they go, and we get a good capacity. So here's the best way to get to it. Okay, here it is. Okay, so watch this. All right, the road that's got a blue surface, that's the BU Bridge. So now if you watch the traffic on the BU Bridge, as the light is red, cars stack up. On the side, you'll see some pedestrians coming over here and waiting in these places, and you'll see how they get through with a single pass. Okay. Now the light is green. These pedestrians start walking, and at the same time, we're clearing out the right turn here, but that ends quickly. These the pedestrians who are walking pause for a second or two, and then they just finish their walk. And then pedestrians go in the other direction. The bikes are going, and all this time now the right turns are being held. Once the pedestrian phase is over, now the second right turn phase goes, and with that combined operation, we get about 20% more cars through than are getting through now. So that will really, so we get better pedestrian safety and bike safety and some congestion relief at the same time. So it's a great win-win. How do I get back to the, here we are. Okay, all right.
I get nervous about the power on the computer.
Oh.
Because when that goes, we are in trouble. I don't know if we're going to reach.
Yeah.
It's a tripping hazard now, sir. And let's just make sure that we actually have some power coming through. We do. Wonderful. So be careful. You got your border right here, buddy. I don't know if you mentioned about the pocket bike lane being out.
Yeah. So you're right. I didn't mention that. So here at the BU Bridge, instead of a pocket bike lane, which is what we have now, where you're riding a bike between 2 lanes of traffic, the bike lane will be all the way on the side, on the edge, with the flex post separating you all the way to the intersection. At the on the Cambridge side of the bridge, so one issue is that there are 2 pedestrian crossings, but they're not coordinated. So you cross and then you get to the middle, and you just have to wait there until your walk comes up for the other half. So what we're proposing is coordinate them both, to put them both on the same cycle, and coordinate them in a way so the pedestrians walking in this direction, they start walking, and when they get to the second crossing, it's still on that flashing don't walk, that they can finish their walk, and the pedestrians in the other direction likewise start here and finish there. I call this the trapezoid method of coordination, because you see the pedestrian phase on one side is not the same length as the other. And that's because cars need more time over here. So, and they need less time over here. So you just kind of shift the green time from one side to the other and get more efficient as well. So, here's a video of how traffic, it'll start with how traffic is now. All right, here's the how it can be and will be. And we've asked the DCR to mount speakers and play this music. Yeah. Well, you know, what you put in the simulation is what you get out. The creator of this is here, so I want to honor him by letting it play to the end. All right, you want to give Evan a hand, and the first one was.
Of investment banker.
And the first video was made by a student who's here to stand up, Fatima. So you can yeah, thank her. Okay, so wait, here we go. Okay. And then as far as reducing congestion, one big puzzle, if you're a traffic engineering person like me who loves puzzles, is what is the real bottleneck on the BU Bridge? Is it the intersection on the Cambridge, on the Boston side here, just not releasing enough people, like the green isn't long enough? Or is it that crosswalk on the Cambridge side that it stops and then nobody can get onto the bridge? It turns out they are both bottlenecks. So and so to reduce the congestion, we're working on both. So here on the ComAv side, I've shown you how with two right turn lanes and a smarter way of operating the signal, we can get a 20% increase in capacity. On the Cambridge side, by coordinating the signals, the cycle will be longer. A lot of times you say, oh, but that's not good for pedestrians, a longer cycle. Yeah, but it's a longer coordinated cycle. So you have to wait a little longer for the first crossing, but you're not going to have to wait at all for the second crossing. So it's actually better for pedestrians too. We get a 12% increase in capacity due to that. And between the two, what's the bottleneck now? Well, if you're my students, I would ask you, what's smaller, 920 or 995? And so this bottleneck 920 grows to 1,000. So 1,070. It's about a 20% increase. So that'll do a lot to just making this crippling congestion disappear. So then I'll give you an overall picture of the timeline for the improvement. So first is widening the Charles River paths at the Rotary, and the DCR owns that, and they are doing that right now. The next, when you get up, going up around to get to the boathouse where John Corkin was killed, there we saw there's a vulnerability that cars coming over the overpass, they have to turn, and if they're not paying attention and turning, they're just going to mount right up on the sidewalk. So we've talked about adding a crash barrier there, and that still has to be permitted, but we hope that'll happen soon. Then the next set, they're colored together because they have to be kind of done at the same time. So doing the other fixes in the Rotary, And the other changes of the Cambridge side intersection, including putting up some new signal equipment, a mast arm, that's a mast with an arm, traffic engineering word, and then the lights hang down from it. So that's going to take some time, but hopefully that will be done next year. And then the new changes in signals, that could only be done at the same time that you change the striping to say 1 lane for through traffic, 1 lane for right turning traffic, and working with Mass DOT to make that happen. Then here on the Boston side, we need to have the lights, the lights retimed, a few new signals put up, some new bike signals. And that has to be done simultaneously with restriping. I just learned about a new agency complication that we didn't know about. It turns out that the BU Bridge, where the structure is, where that big arch is, that's owned by Mass DOT. But as soon as that arch ends, that next piece is owned by DCR. Yeah. When you're going over the Charles River, you're in Mass DOT property territory. When you're going over Starrow Drive, you're in DCR property. So the DCR has to come and restripe it. That change and the ComAv signal changes, that could happen this fall if they can get to it before it gets too cold. Once it's too cold, you can't lay down striping, and then we have to wait till spring. So it's just a very optimistic timeline ahead of us. So hoorah.
Only Peter Firth can make civil engineering fun. Okay, so now we're going to hear some stakeholder perspectives before we get to our colleagues from DCR and BTD. Make sure we are still charging this computer. And we are. Okay, so we're going to hear from Brendan Kearney first. I stopped my, well, I didn't stop it yet, but I'm going to stop sharing it now. And how do we make sure that we are seeing what we want to see here? Make this bigger. Well, that's not much better, is it? Let's just minimize the zoom. Is that okay? Is that a good backdrop? You can see who's on. Okay. Anyway, Brendan Kearney, Executive Director of Walk, Massachusetts. Watch the tripping.
I'm going that way. We'll be all right. Well, thanks everyone for being here. I'm with Walk Massachusetts. We're a statewide pedestrian advocacy organization. We were founded in 1990 as Walk Boston. And we're working to make communities work better for people walking and be a resource for residents, municipal staff, and elected officials. Thank you so much to the BU Bridge Safety Alliance. These multi-jurisdictional locations are always difficult. You've heard about that multiple times, but that's because they are super difficult. Really appreciate the collaboration and your work moving this along. Always love how Peter can make signal changes exciting. It really gets me excited about that. I love traffic signals, but Peter gets me excited about them. Yeah, I really appreciate the push for safer and more convenient crossings for people walking and running, including reducing that right turn conflict with people walking across ComAv. Also really appreciate the shorter crossings on the Cambridge side, the experience of people walking across the mouth of the bridge to improve with that one crosswalk phase. And, I'm really hopeful for better desire lines across the neck for people walking and running along the river without getting stranded on the island with that DCR work. So thanks to DCR for moving that forward. Overall, we're really hoping for more separation whenever possible. Separating people on foot and on bike at the crosswalks makes a lot of sense on the Cambridge side for movements along the river. We would love to see it extended further along the paths as well, if possible, to encourage less conflict and a more pleasant experience for people on foot, running or walking, and people trying to safely commute on bike. Wider is better in this case. We understand that downstream towards the boathouse, it's harder to separate since it's narrower than 14 feet, but we'd love DCR to do what they can. Lastly, and this is a good thing, we're going to need to expect detours for people walking and running and biking during construction. So let's make sure that we can all share that really constricted space. It's going to get us to a better place. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Brendan. And we're going to hear from Jerry Zhao, who is a junior at BU. Watch yourself here. Oh. And he is president of the BU Urbanist Club or Group.
Thank you, Ken. everyone. As Ken said, my name is Jerry Zhao, and I'm the president and founder of a new student organization on campus called the Boston University Urbanism Club. So first, again, I'll thank Ken, Peter, and everyone else involved with the BU Bridge Safety Alliance in your really hard work for bringing all these stakeholders together and in pushing these much needed changes to the BU Bridge corridor. As one of the many BU students who walks, bikes, takes the T, takes the 57, the BU bus across this corridor every single day, I can absolutely confirm that these changes are much needed. The BU Bridge is the sole connection between BU's West Campus and BU Central and East campuses, if you're looking at it from going from West Campus from west to east. So many BU students cross this corridor every single day, thousands, probably maybe even tens of thousands cross this corridor every single day, multiple times a day. So improving conditions at this corridor will make thousands of students' trips across this corridor safer every single day. So thank you again for your work in making the BU Bridge safer for all. I think these improvements are a great start, but in order to make BU's campus as a whole safer for all road users, I think that we should look beyond the BU Bridge corridor and we need to look between Kenmore Square and the BU Bridge on Comm Ave, where there currently don't exist protected bike lanes. This is the busiest stretch of Comm Ave for bike, scooter, and pedestrian traffic. So for the sake of my safety and for the sake of the safety of the many other people who bike and scooter to class, protected bike lanes on Comm Ave between the BU Bridge and Kenmore Square can't come soon enough. I myself have been hit on Comm Ave by cars twice. Thankfully, there were low-speed collisions where I was able to walk away. I was all right. But given that cars rarely follow this 25-mile-per-hour speed limit on Comm Ave, I think it's only a matter of time until another vulnerable road user is seriously injured or even killed by infrastructure which enables reckless driving and prioritizes the convenience of drivers above all. I'll remind you all that it was just over a month ago that John Corcoran was killed in front of the BU Boathouse by a reckless driver. BU students deserve a voice in what their campus looks like. And to me, that voice is saying that they want a campus where they don't have to worry about getting seriously injured or killed by a car on their way to class. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. I'll also echo St. Mary's Street over here should be highly pedestrianized. And really, it's a key corridor for people going north and south. I commute on it every day. I don't even go to BU anymore, and I use it every day. So it's a very important route. Okay, and we're going to finish up with Galen Mook, who is the executive director of Mass Bike and a real key cog on the BU Bridge Alliance. So, and a BU alum.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the invitation, Ken, and the whole BU Bridge Alliance team. I'm very impressed with actually the turnout and the interest. So I want to thank you all for being here, both in person and online. I'm here to not really just talk about bicycling concerns, because I think that's very well covered. And just to kind of remind folks of the history of this corridor, my name is Galen Mook. I'm the executive director of Mass Bike, but I was a BU alum, was here as an undergrad and a grad student from 2003 to 2009. I'm currently an Alston resident, so this is a very near and dear corridor for me personally, but I get to see the experience and the lived experience of traversing up and down this corridor. I also want to emphasize that the fact of how far we have come to get to this point is very impressive. So I want to thank the DOTs, the DCRs, the departments of transportations, the universities for pushing and pursuing this. Quick pop quiz. Does anybody know what the first bike lane in the city of Boston was? Anybody? Jerry? Yeah, it was the BU Bridge to Kenmore Square. What year was that? 2007, 2008? Not that long ago. We've come a long way. The first bridge to have flex posts leading up to it, BU Bridge. The first protected bike lane that was a city sidewalk adjacent that had the conflicts of bus stops, floating bus shelters, auto repair shops, Disney on ices. Anybody know what that one is? It's right behind us. The first contraflow bike lane in the area. Anybody know what that one was? Ivy Street, Brookline. Like, this is the epicenter of change. It needs to continuously evolve. Just because we've done something 15, 20 years ago, we're going to look and see what we can do better and do more and more and more. So I went to some folks at the DOT and I said, hey, they're going to mess with your signal timing on the BU Bridge. We did that big project a while ago. And the guy from DOT says, great. It's all about evolution. It's all about seeing what the needs are and moving forward. So just to keep the encouragement up. I also want to note that what we're talking about isn't just what Brendan and Jerry and I are up here to separate our modes. We are talking about accessibility. We're talking about safety for everybody who is out there. Bike lanes make roads safer. Wider sidewalks make roads safer for everybody, for drivers, for people on wheeled mobility devices, for people who are on crutches. We are all going to need accessibility in our lives, and this is the time to not lose track of that. We have an opportunity, thanks to Ken and the team for pulling everyone together, and very rarely do we get such a multi-jurisdictional conversation. So use this opportunity for what we have. And I'm really appreciative that we are all here. And actually, we're not against each other. I haven't seen anything yet that opposes anything that we're asking for. It's not should we do it, but it's how to do it, how quickly can we do it, and how much money will it take. So with that, I'll pass it back and we can give it off to the officials to roll on. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Galen. Really appreciate it. So we are going to turn now to Jason Santos and AJ Turini from DCR. So let's see if we can make this magic work. Crystal, I'm going to turn it to you now to lead us here. So.
Oh, I'm depending on Jason to do the screen sharing. And
yeah,
I think
very focused. I can see him.
Ken, can you hear us?
Yeah, we can.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. Excellent. So Ken and Peter and certainly to the Alliance, thank you for having us here tonight in your advocacy and certainly the many meetings and discussions that we've had for the improvements in this corridor. And I also wanted to, on behalf of the commissioner, thank Senator Brownsberger for his leadership and certainly Rep. Connolly for their efforts bringing us here today. And then finally, this wouldn't have happened without the coordinated efforts, without our partners that the senator had alluded to earlier. But the city and also was very helpful with their participation in helping us with some licensing and certainly DOT, but also the BU administration was helpful with coordination and communication efforts. So with that, I'll turn it over to our Director of Transportation, Jason Santos. And he and his team, I also want to thank as well. They're a small crew that cover a great portion of the Commonwealth, and they've put a lot of time and effort to quickly turn around this project before the winter season hits to make sure we could get improvements right away. Jason?
Thanks, AJ. Hey, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen and run through. Bear with me. Here we go. So this is the construction plan for the short-term improvements on the BU Rotary side of the BU Bridge. So the improvements started on the Magazine Beach entrance to here's the outdoor gym area to the Magazine Beach. If you can look closely, the gray line represents the old curb line. The purple is the new. We essentially took the sidewalk from a 5 to 6 foot wide sidewalk and made it a 14-foot wide shared use path. We also widened the wheelchair ramp connecting to the Rotary. We added bike ramps. We widened this sidewalk here underneath the Reed overpass, made that a shared use path as well. We had to do some catch basin relocations to push that curb line out. The widening continues up towards the BU Bridge. Again, another catch basin relocation, a light pole relocation. So again, 14 feet continues all the way up to the BU Bridge. We widened the wheelchair ramp near the intersection that Peter was showing you earlier. And we also added a ramp for bikes only so that it essentially, as you're coming up around, you have the ability to drop down onto the BU Bridge surface and continue up and over the bridge. I'm going to jump over to a couple of progress photos. And so this was about a little over a week ago. So this is in that area, widening the sidewalk. We're paving the entire 14-foot wide width. This is this opposite view, kind of turning 90 degrees towards the Reed overpass. We are demoing the sidewalk under the Reed overpass. and repaving that entire area. And this is up near where I was just showing you, up near the intersection of the BU Bridge, paving all of these new wheelchair ramps much wider and in concrete. Jumping back over to the rendering, the drawing, we widened this crossing through the island to accommodate both peds and bikes. We widened the wheelchair ramp. On the east side, we created a bike-only off-ramp, a bike ramp, so that anybody coming up over the BU Bridge has a way on their bike to exit and get up onto the newly formed shared use path. We had to move, similar on this side, we had to move a couple of catch basins out. This side is about 13 feet wide. We had some constraints with MBTA buses making that turn. And so we maxed that out at 13 feet. That widening continues all the way up to the BU boathouse. This red triangle here used to be a jog in the sidewalk. This jog was created by a retaining wall. We've removed that retaining wall and we've created this nice taper going from 13 feet to approximately 15 feet in front of the BU boathouse. Again, another catch basin removal. And I'm going to show you just a few photos of that side. Just bear with me. And so this was just this week and last week, we were demolishing the sidewalk going up the eastbound on-ramp, heading up to the BU boathouse. This is a view from up near the BU boathouse looking down. The detour is in place and that piece of equipment is working its way up. And this is rebuilding that retaining wall and creating that triangle shape. And this will eventually be filled in all with sidewalk to make, as I mentioned, a nice wide taper. And that's about it.
Jason, there's a room full of smiling people who appreciate all those things that you're doing.
Yeah, so I don't know if you heard Peter saying that there's a room full of smiling people here who are very thankful for what's being done. You also have hello, a bunch of Peter Firths here who are looking forward to all of the changes that will be happening next year, or actually even this year. And I don't suppose you're talking about anything else right now, but maybe we'll hear from John Monticelli what the city of Boston's thinking about for the ComAv side. I know people probably have questions for Jason and AJ, but maybe we'll hold those to the Q&A period. Anything else from you guys besides that presentation? Oh, can we hold the questions till the end, and we'll come back. But anything else, Jason and AJ, from your side?
I think that covers it, Ken. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that covers it, Ken. Thank you very much. And thanks to you and Peter for all your help. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, I think we're going to go then to John Monticelli. After John, then we'll get to hopefully a robust Q&A period. So, John?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I guess I'll echo the overwhelming thanks to both the Alliance and all of the co-collaborators here, the stakeholders, munis, electeds. And as a former student of Professor Firth, I also enjoy listening to him talk about weird traffic things. So I'm very happy to present what we have been working on over on the ComAv side. Sorry. Let's see if we do this successfully. Do we have a PDF? Essentially, great. Put this out of the way. Sorry. I think I know how to do this. So many years. Okay. Again, my name is John Monticelli. I work currently for the infrastructure and design team at the City of Boston, which is a cool new group of folks, engineers, planners, data analysts, a little collection of us that are working on project delivery of planning and resources and engineering that is moving those needles, forward, like Galen was talking about. So right now we are looking to see what we can do in the very short term with the partnership with DCR. So quick here. You are much closer than I am here, but an aerial just of where we're looking at. Wanted to start with, again, acknowledging that the advocacy elements of this lifted this from like a list of our concerned intersections or our intersections for concern, essentially. A lot of things came into play, and we appreciate people mobilizing together to lift this up. So we're going to run through the problem solution combos and then the space and time allocations and organizations, just to break this out into a piece. And again, Professor Firth did an enormous amount of my job previously, so I'll try not to repeat it cold. So focusing on this southbound approach on the bridge, technically, as the professor said, this is on terra firma. So essentially the top of that photo until where you see the bridge joint rejoin to the intersection, that is technically DCR land. So Jason's been very kind to allow us to present a variety of things over to him and his agency for consideration. And then again, all of you folks have been working on your side to convince him and others that we can do this. So right now, the biggest problem has been listed is the southbound right turns. So folks coming down the bridge, going from that one lane, kind of on a downhill slightly, crossing over the bike lane, and then going into that rightmost turn lane. And then while that's active, making that turn over those pedestrians who are in the crosswalk. Right now, as folks have said, these are the volumes roughly for the peaks that we use in the models. As you can see, they're well in excess of our guidelines currently for permissive vehicle-to-ped conflicts. So that's one piece. And then, as I mentioned, this crossover point on the bridge, and then an overwhelming concern or kind of like a need to look at how long cyclists are allowed or provided time to get fully through the intersection, right? We know that there's a range of speed cyclists can take, but most of them are lower than the 32-mile-an-hour average of the driver. So really taking a quick look at those to see how we can lift those clearances for like all red times or different intervals to keep people safer before cars start moving in the opposite direction. Quick. So those same problems on the left, no photo, sorry about the text. But these are our kind of considerations quickly for what we're doing. That conflict with the right turns, we're going to take the bike lane and shift it over, or we're asking DCR very nicely to take the bike lane and shift it over to the curb. And then we're going to kind of reorient how many lanes we have, and we're going to phase separate is the technical term. So we'll just be running folks who are making the right turn, and everyone who's kind of going up and down north-south will have, they'll all get their separate turns. We won't have them interact at the same time. So that solves that problem. As I mentioned, bike safety and that crossover point, moving it against the curb removes that interaction coming off of the bridge. Again, when folks are kind of coming down the crest, not a great time to be maneuvering downhill with the interaction. And then that last part, super easy. We're just going to recalculate those equations for the red times to make sure that someone going 12 or even 10 miles an hour, perhaps, can make it all the way through that intersection before something else starts to move and to stress out that user. So just a couple quality things to add here on top of the safety pieces. It's a reorganization of space, as Ken and some others have stated and reiterated. We don't have any more space coming in the short term, so we have to use the 62 or so feet that we're given. This is not a reallocation of the space, unfortunately. Right now, what we're just kind of trying to put down is the structure of reorganizing. So this is no secret now. The big reveal has been spoiled. This is the comparative current on the left and the proposed straight from the plans, clipped so savagely. Sorry about that. As you see, again, keeping cyclists, we're going to make a nice thicker line along the bike lane. Typically, we use a thicker line like that on bus lanes or even on highway elements to like really focus the attention. But I wanted this thicker line here actually so that it lasts longer, right? It's just a feature of being on the road. The thermoplastic wears away. So the bigger the line is, honestly, the longer it'll last. And then go to this guy here, reallocation of time. As I said, we're aiming for the phase separation. We did consider a couple different alternatives just to try to see, to kick the tires and see if there was anything holistically that we needed to change at the intersection or that we were able to at the intersection. So we tried some things. We tried a single right turn lane and tried to see how we can make that work. But as others and the professor have laid out, there's a real concern for exceeding that storage, right? That new pocket is only so long. It's not granted to us the entire span of the bridge. But ultimately, what we ended up landing on was a tenuous balance for the time being to do 2 right turn lanes and then a single through lane. And again, that was run through a little bit earlier, but I just wanted to emphasize, like, so when we ran through the traffic model, which is definitely not as cool as the one the professor had with his grad students, but when we ran the one that's inherent to the the traffic-aware software there, sim traffic, it does allow us to see some variability in the platooning of people coming over the bridge in kind of spurts and fits. And what we're able to see is that for the most part, unless there is that Red Sox game, we're really only predicting that people are going to be stored on that bridge. Long-winded way of saying we are not expecting that queue to go all the way back to the rotary right now. So as we continue moving forward, we're going to keep moving time around at the intersection to keep that as minimal as possible. But right now, we're not even predicting that, some really bad situations. So we're really optimistic about this. Everyone is aware of the current condition, basically positioning us where we would be on a bike. And then as you can see, that right turn arrow is somewhat of a suggestion. We have the crosswalk on, a pedestrian about to go into this conflict zone. So this is a lot about safety or applying some safety principles, but it's also about just kind of trying to calm down some really stressful interactions and increase the predictability. Because when people can kind of predict what's going to happen, more on grid streets to think about, but when people can predict what's going to happen, their aggression or their anxiety goes down enormously. So we're going to try and produce some of that predictability. Again, another very savage clip from the plan set. I'm sure someone is quickly pulling out a smartphone, but just to give you a picture of how everything lines up together, right? So the really dark triangles, those are all the signal indications. We'll be swapping out some of those. We'll be giving cyclists some new indications to better clarify, to show them very clearly, like, now is the time not to be going, please. Now is the time for those right turners to be turning across, and vice versa for those drivers. And then there's a fairly messy or busy phasing diagram on the bottom right there. Again, just lays out the fact we're going to be giving those through movements, those crosswalks, those cyclists, the priority as the first phase. The turners who are making the right turn, they can sit for a minute and wait. And again, we'll be watching this on several of the cameras that we have. If we're able to implement this fall or this winter, we'll be taking a look, keeping an eye on it. If there's any tweaks or any type of adjustments that we need to make, we'll be doing so. Again, implementation, we've been sharing things back and forth with DCR, where we are, as a city of Boston, we're going to be doing the changes to the infrastructure on the signals, and then the wiring and the timing and the controller updates for that. And then, as I said, DCR is going to would oversee the work directly on their right of way there on the bridge landing for the minor resurfacing and the pavement marking restoration. Again, ideally this fall. So we're just kind of having everything packaged up and sitting waiting so that we can be ready to move when possible. I mentioned post implementation again. If we are able to install this winter, we will be keeping an eye on everything. I believe we also have a camera on the Cambridge, the Mem Drive side, so we can pull those both up, keep them side by side on a separate screen, and keep an eye on those in our traffic management center. Also, it allows us to do a bit of an adjustment period to kind of see what is really sticking and what is actually really impactful to the benefit of our plan. And then otherwise, in the spring, we can continue talking over the winter about any additional adjustments or any type of other changes to phasing and things like that. So this is not done, but we do want to get something on the ground as soon as possible. And I know that we said questions later, but everyone needs a happy dog with a tie. So thank you guys so much.
Here we go. Okay, so we are going to hear briefly from our colleagues at Mass DOT, and then we'll open up to Q&A. So I will. Yeah, so we've got Steve Miller pining very nicely about the fact, John, that you are willing to make changes continuously after implementation of what you guys will be doing. So I will turn it over to our friendly colleagues from Mass DOT.
Evening, everyone. I'm Ben Muller. I'm the district planner and the bike ped coordinator for Highway Division District 6, which covers most of the inner core communities, Boston, Cambridge, Brookline, particularly. Thanks for coming together, and thanks to Ken and to the BU Safety Alliance for bringing together so many different voices and so many different perspectives for this. It's very helpful for large agencies like ours, where obviously we can't be out there trying every bit of our assets, and especially where it conflicts with so many other agencies and so many other cities and towns. It's very helpful to have the experience of the users sort of front and center. So not to be anticlimactic here, but I'm sure you've heard MassDOT has relatively limited jurisdiction here. We own a lot of things, but we don't have much decision-making authority over many things in this particular area. So we've been trying our best to support, provide our analysis where necessary, and try our best to get out of the way when we need to. I know some of our processes can take a long time, add months to things, and we really wanted to support especially the very rapid work that the DCR has been doing in getting this into the ground from sort of conception to construction so quickly. It's very rare that we see work happening within a month. So kudos to the DCR for getting that going. But we have been paying close attention to all the issues that are being raised here, and we are bringing them into our longer term capital planning and capital projects in the area. I know we have a project slated a few years in the future to look at the Memorial Drive viaduct over the Rotary. And so I know we're taking in this data, we're taking in this information to try to make that project better and to think about what we can do for our longer term projects in the area. So in short, we've been really in awe of the implementation speed of the DCR, of the ability and willingness of BTD and the DCR to listen and accomplish these things. And we're glad that we haven't slowed anything down. So thanks.
Thank you, Ben. And before we open up to Q&A, I'm going to bring this full circle because all of this advocacy began with a question from a friend of ours from Brookline who said, why aren't there protected bike lanes on the BU Bridge? So the one thing we haven't heard about, but I've heard that there's a cache of flex posts ready to go at Mass DOT to implement on our very narrow bike lanes. Is that going to be part of what we're going to see implemented this year if we get the changes happening with BTD signal changes and DCRs restriping?
It's our long process, so we're discussing with our highway design team and our highway traffic design.
Okay, so the jury, Ben said the jury is still out on that. Is the jury out because you don't have that secret cache of flex posts, or you don't believe flex posts belong on a 5-foot bike lane?
Bringing the teams out to take a look at it, looking at what flex post options we have. So we're really trying every angle to see what we can do.
Okay, so the concern is the 5-foot width of the bike lane. I think Dr. Firth will have some very strong arguments in favor of putting those flex posts in. And show of hands, how many people in this room would like to have flex posts on the BU Bridge to make them safe? Yeah, so from a user point of view, and I can't tell you how many people with children I see biking on those narrow bike lanes. So when you're thinking about the use case, picture a 5-year-old, 6-year-old child. There was one just here just now on that bridge without any protection. So anyway, that's the use case that we all think about, that and old people like me and Peter and Steve. Okay, so we thank you everybody, DCR, Jason and AJ, and thank you John Monticelli, thank you Ben, and folks from Mass DOT and our other speakers. So we are in the Q&A period now. So I think the way this could work here, at least, we have a traveling microphone. IT person left. Hold on. Here we go. It is now working. So what we'll do is raise your hand and we will start. Now we've got some online questions too, so we'll let this go for a little bit and we'll do Q&A. So I'm going to take the furthest person from me right now, and that is Ian McGoldrick over here, and then we'll just kind of go back and forth. So Ian.
Hey, thanks, Ken, and thanks for everybody for all the hard work on this effort. I just had a quick question for John Monticelli. Great presentation, by the way, even despite the hard snippets that you did. I was curious about you're talking about the bike signal placement on Com Ave, and I was just curious about where the placement was. Is it going to be like an overhead signal or a near side signal? I've just anecdotally, like the signal placement in Inman Square has been really nice that it's like near side and at cyclist eye level for me as a cyclist. So I was just curious if you had more input on that.
Sorry, yes. So there's going to be one that is near side. It's, if I can find that photo, we could put something else up that people can look at. So it's not an ideal location. Let me see if I can present quickly. It's not an ideal location, but it will be on the mast arm, basically on the right-hand side of their approach to the intersection. So again, not in direct alignment, but then you will have other bike signals in front of you. They'll just be bigger and they'll kind of be joined in with the vehicle movement indications. I'm just trying to find this layout quickly here. Let's see, A to A. So I have a smaller, I think it's going to be an 8-inch probably to fit on that mast arm near side, the one that's on the right-hand side there. And then we have two other bike signals. Let me see. 5. So one on the transit way, and then one.
If you're looking to show something, we're not seeing anything.
I'm sorry, hold on. Real class act right here. Sorry about that.
Got to get our
Those
entertainment.
birth disciples.
There we go. Okay, patience. The evening patience. Okay, so whether or not you can see my cursor, but this guy here.
We see it.
Yep, there we go. That will be the smaller one here. It's just what fits, what wires in. So you'll be able to see that light as you come down the bike lane, down the bridge. And then these other two will be a lot bigger. They'll be the standard size of traffic signals for cars, but they'll have the lenses for the bike symbols, or they'll have the bike symbol for the lenses. So those will be on 5A. That'll be down here on the transit way. And then with 3B, where are we? Oh, I believe that's the one for eastbound, or for westbound cyclists. Sorry. Yep. So it'll be these two on the right-hand side over here. We will continue to see where we can move things around. Moving signals on top of along mast arms is really difficult because moment analysis, right? So we have to be really careful on where we put certain things, and then there are guidelines for the number of indications required per movement of vehicles. So we kind of have to work backwards on that, unfortunately. But we're going to keep looking to see if there's better placements for those bike signals.
Great. We have a online question from Alex Orima. I appreciate the addition of flex posts, but they are ineffective in protecting peds and bikes from cars. The ones installed at the bridge by Mass DOT 4 years ago have long since been demolished and not replaced. Can we do what the rest of the world does and use concrete bollards or armadillos like those placed on Mount Auburn Street? So I guess that would be directed to Mass DOT.
Yeah, so we're a little more constrained than the cities and towns are by federal highway approval of, I'm not sure the details because I'm not a traffic engineer, but I believe it's MASH compliance is what it's called. And so we do have a pilot project in planning to look at just test some out and see if we can get them across the little hurdle that we need to get okay to use them more broadly. And so that's a wide array of the bike lane barriers that are used in other jurisdictions.
Yeah. And would that maybe help quell some of the concerns for flex posts on such a narrow 5-foot bike lane? Would that help get you guys there? You don't know. Okay. Defer to the engineers. Okay. So now a question from this side of the room. So, sir.
Could we move towards some intelligent lights, the traffic lights that assess and look at the demand in the different directions and then change the timings dynamically based on the situations instead of fixed timings?
This sounds very engineering, so I'm going to give it to Peter Firth.
Or do you want to answer, John?
I was just going to speak from the city's perspective, but
So I'm a really big fan of fully actuated traffic signals that act based on detectors, but there is a place for pre-timed, and there are two places for it. One is for if you know how long a phase is going to be, then you can give the pedestrians more time. So and the pedestrian crossing need is so long, there just isn't much room there isn't much wiggle room there anyway. And then the other thing that comes up is that this intersection here has to coordinate with the next one, you know, at where Carlton Street Bridge is, and with the one at Brookline. Like these three have to act together. So if this one is cycling every 90 seconds, the other two also have to cycle every 90 seconds. They can't just go on their own. So that's the constraint there. But within that constraint, if you can put in some intelligence, sure.
John, anything else to add?
I'll just say from some of our initial work, trying to expand on not just the transit priority elements, the T is really helping us push forward, but there is a technological element where we need to be skeptical because the detection elements are much easier to pick up cars and vehicles. They're just larger, and there's a lot of technology to create algorithms to grab boxes, but when they're people shaped, they merge together in groups. So I am I'll say optimistically cautious about some of those things because we have a lot of cameras that we're retrofitting to grab detection zones or to be more active, like you were saying. But there is a group of us who are just trying to be very mindful every step because those technologies often leave out folks who we actually want to serve better. So yes, and yes.
Hello. So my question is through personal experiences. I am so sick of being a pedestrian and I have the walk light and you're ready to turn into me and then you swear. And sometimes when you don't swear, you're like, I have the green light. Why are you letting them cross when we have the walk light? It's unfair. Not only that, but then the border of Boston and Brookline, you changed at least one street to be one way. What do you think that did for the other side of the street between Boston and Brookline or Brookline and Boston? It's not, no, there's no diversity here. It's not fair. And there's no distinguishing often between a narrow sidewalk and a bike lane. And the people that want to use the bike lane use the narrow sidewalk. I mean, if you're going to have a bike lane, use it. Narrow sidewalks, I don't want to be, run into by a bicycle. And I certainly don't enjoy being threatened all the time turning on the walk light. And I know that you should know it's also Farmers Bridge, not BU Bridge. They don't pay for anything. They didn't even have the permit to develop underneath my window. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. We do have Brendan Kearney here from Walk, Massachusetts. So as a pedestrian, I recommend talking to Brendan after the meeting. I have a perspective here from Design Lab Architects. Not certain who that is, but the comment is, I'm wondering if there has been any study or analysis on the effect of Red Sox home games on the traffic over the bridge. I live in Cambridgeport on Pearl Street, where the traffic occasionally backs up 5 to 6 blocks into Cambridgeport. There appears to be 100% correlation with the worst backups in Sox home games. If this proves true, are there rerouting measures or other mitigation that could be put in place specific to Red Sox home games? This might be a city of Boston kind of response, John. I think
I'll take it, but I'll give a half answer. I'll be honest. Yeah, we are trying to explore at least the collection of data, right? That's where we're going to start. We have a lot of anecdotes. We know a lot of stories of what's going on in the Fenway. We know a lot of the crushing anecdotes of what we can see from the helicopter cams on traffic TV. But I've been asking, or we've been asking a lot of our data folks to see if there's this metadata that we can actually use for like a progressive or a forward policy driven application. So I've been terming it just like seeing the burden that we endure. That's not politically viable, so they're going to pick a different title for that. But they are at least interested in understanding, yes, what is the difference in what we do every day as far as traffic understanding, and what happens when there is a concert at Fenway or a huge, Bruins game at the Garden kind of thing. So it isn't just limited to Red Sox or the bridge here. It's a lot of these very narrow choke points of either bridges or state infrastructure that have ramps that connect to our various municipalities. So the answer is I don't have an answer, but we're very interested in trying to look at, again, that type of burden upon the city itself.
Thanks. Newly added phase separation depends on drivers not making illegal right turns on red. Walking around Boston, that's a huge assumption. What's in the plans to encourage compliance?
That's a great question.
Who wants that one? TCR, MassDOT. Oh, Peter's going to make an attempt at this. A tough question.
It is a tough question. I'll just give you my experience. On my regular commute, there was a dangerous intersection with cars turning left while bikes were going through. The city changed the signals, and the car driver's like, "What? That red light is not for me," and they just went through the red light. Went through. I mean, just everybody going through the red light. After 6 months, people were still all going through the red light, but after 9 months, they weren't. So I don't know if there's a plan to do anything, but at least my experience, and now after 12 months, everybody just obeys the light. So I'm hoping that's what we'll get.
So I think we're gonna change to Holly and then to Rod.
Yes, thank you. I'm very excited to see what happens after this area is fixed because I take this roads every day. I am also very happy about this detour that is built to go around the construction. But yesterday I had this kind of almost got hit by this car on the other side. Kind of I took the cross bridge and then trying to come back on the BU Bridge, and there are all these directions of car coming in as we were coming out of this new kind of constructed temporary bike lane under the bridge. And there's no stop sign. I guess is that the place where there will be stop signs? So this car came out of nowhere as I was crossing. It was passed right in front of me, super close. And I didn't see it was so fast. And I assume if there were some stop signs in some locations that
Highlight was that as you went under the overpass, and then this is basically the down ramp on Memorial Drive. Yeah, so there are stop signs there. That person ran the stop signs. So there used to be yield signs there, and you almost got hit by a car that ran stop signs. And that's kind of similar to your question. How do you prevent people from doing the wrong things and turning on, making a right turn when they shouldn't be making a right turn or going straight? And
I guess the answer is that you just
I
should not
think-
trust anything.
yeah,
Just have to wait
I
and-
think that's the answer. As a bicyclist, it's a full attention sport, and you have to be ready for anything. So that's a tricky one. Now the Reed Overpass may be coming down, and that's a great argument for knocking down the Reed Overpass because there is that abutment that's there that blocks the sight line. So, so thank you, Hala. While I'm going to go online real quick, and then we'll go to Ron. So Dennis Sukachev online, how will cities remove snow from narrow bike paths like one at Harvard Street at Coolidge Corner in Brookline? So I'll put that to John. Oh, Dan. Oh, hi, Dan. Yeah, yes. Hold on. Microphone.
How do we move snow from narrow bike lanes where they're flexible?
We'll get it back to you.
Like what you have on Harvard Street there.
Please do speak into the microphone.
Yep, a narrow bike plow is one way, and sometimes we take them down for the winter. That's really all you can do. What everybody's going towards getting the narrow plows.
Yeah, just today I was biking in Somerville, and I noticed the little I forget what they're called. They're small vehicles that yeah, during the summer, they're cleaning the streets, and then in the winter, they put a plow on them. So yeah, they're cats, whatever the snow, bobcats. Yeah. Anyway, so that's what's been used, and that is the same width, I think. So, and hopefully the cities do remove snow. So we'll go, Ron, and we'll come back to you. So
once the project is finished on the Cambridge side, it's going to be really painfully evident how bad the bike path is going west on the Cambridge side from the BU Bridge through the Magazine Beach area toward River Street. What is the city of Cambridge or the DCR or both going to do about making that path wider and also smoother? There's two problems there. The pavement is terrible and there's not enough of it.
yeah, and I feel bad during head of the Charles too, when we have thousands of people coming into our area. That's to you, Jason, I guess.
Yeah, I can take that one, Ken. So we are right now in the process of evaluating that stretch and trying to put a group of sections together that are the priority for springtime kind of resurfacing of those paths.
Does that include widening them?
Yep, and the in most sections, there's no physical barrier to widening, and for us, it's permitting. So we're going to go through that process this winter, and in the sections where it's kind of low hanging fruit, they're rough, they're narrow. Those are the ones we're going to get to first, and the plan is to permit those and get to those in the spring.
Hello, my name is Sally Edwards, and I'm a reporter with the Harvard Crimson. Thank you all so much. This was really informative, and as someone who's been covering this for a while, I really enjoyed, hearing everything tonight. I know there's a saying that things can be done fast, cheap, or good, and it can only ever be two of the three. I don't know how much that applies here, but in line with that, I had two questions. The first being, how much is this going to cost, and where is the funding coming from? And the second, considering that this is, a very rapid response to a threat to the community, is there any risk in the fact that this process is going so quickly? Thank you so much.
So I imagine that's a DCR question. So Jason?
Yeah, no, I don't see, the entire point of this is to improve safety. And so for all users. So for your second question, I don't see an increase. I can't envision an increase of risk to the public. As far as cost goes, originally we projected between $1 million to $1.5 million. I think it's going to be closer to the $1.5 million side. We expanded even more, a bit more of the work by widening the sidewalks. And as I showed, going underneath the Reed overpass to widen and create a shared use path on the western side of the rotary. So we jumped on a few other areas. And so I have a feeling it's going to be closer to the $1.5 million.
And I would add to that, Jason, as well, that this has been a part of a planning process with the BU Alliance Safety Group in the Senator's office for a year or so in the planning in this corridor as well. So there are a lot of discussion points and plans that were put in place that allowed Jason's team to implement construction fairly quickly.
That's great to hear. So we have Jessica Mink online. My problem is going from west on Comath to west on the Cambridge side, Paul Dudley White westbound bike path. Pardon me. Right now, I ride slowly on the northbound sidewalk on the bridge to avoid waiting at the light on the Cambridge side. So I think that's the question. And the problem is then going west on Comath to west on the Cambridge side, Paul Dudley. So she's going this way and then that way. So kind of a Z.
Well, Jessica, you can keep doing that, but this is going to make it easier to do it with the BU Bridge bike lane because and when you get near the light in Cambridge, there's going to be a ramp, an exit ramp, Jason called it, to get from the bike lane up into the sidewalk there at the corner. And that's going to be a nice expanded corner, so enough room. And there, you'd have to wait for a light. When you do get the light, because the light to cross the mouth of the BU Bridge, the two crossings will be coordinated, unlike now. So when you get that light, then you go through crossing 1, go through crossing 2, and then you're on your way. So it'll be a lot better for that exact movement that you're describing.
Yeah, so you were mentioning earlier about the nice ramps we have on the Cambridge side that will make kind of right turns in both directions nicer. But still right now on the Boston side, if you're turning right, even if it's turning right on a bike at the same time as car traffic, a lot of times car traffic will intrude into the bike lane and just make it very stressful. So from the Boston side, are there any plans to make that better in the short term or long term?
I hope I'm misunderstanding because the Com Ave eastbound right turns are separated. The westbound Com Avs are separated. The northbound is a jug handle. So the southbound is the only one left. So this is the one we're tackling. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Absolutely yeah.
Once you got the bike lanes up next to the curb, and then you're just turning right, you're just staying right there.
I don't know. I'm looking. I do that turn every day though, and I'm looking at it. You're talking about right over here, right? Making the right from Commath. Oh, I see. Oh, I got you. Okay. Yeah, because I would say too the other direction, coming west on Commath, making a right on the BU Bridge to head to Cambridge. There's the bike lane, but cars often intrude that are making a right turn. So there needs to be more flex posts. Actually, John, while you're listening, flex posts.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry,
we'll jump through the intersection, and I'm not adept enough to pull this up quickly. So we're talking like the northeast corner. So you're going Com Ave westbound. You're heading out of the city, essentially.
And you're making a right on the BU Bridge to go.
Yeah. So there were I think we put in 10 flex posts. I think 3 survived heroically. So I did throw it in the chat quickly, but hopefully everyone, folks can walk out and see if you're nearby. A big shout out to Nick Tomkevich over at the MBTA, who I caught in leaving a meeting, asked him about this one question. I said, where is the absolute limit that I can put flex post to for this bus to still operate? Please tell me. And he jumped on a bus the next day, rode it with the driver, took some photos, and we had a recommendation. So we did increase the number of flex posts on that approach there. It's as far as I can get it towards the bus stop as possible. So I think we doubled the number of flex posts just to extend that area. Hopefully drivers are not driving in that new area as well, but we can look at that.
Okay, question from this side of the room. So we'll.
This relates a bit to that last question. So I appreciate the work that's planned for on the bridge and the approach to the Cambridge side, but as you're coming off the bridge, turning right onto Com Ave, even with the bike lane up against the side, there are cars who often, in a lot of projects, we see the flex post protection ends at the stop line, and cars will take that turn too tight. We've seen that with MassDOT projects. Some full construction projects in Boston more recently have been doing a bit more protected intersection design. And Cambridge recently has started doing some protected intersection, like those sort of islands that protect the bike lane and force the cars to take the turn a bit wider using quick build materials. Are either of those things we could see added to the redesigned right turn in the bike lane off the bridge onto Com Ave?
I know exactly what you're talking about. I know that I probably was on the list in the South End for doing Tremont Street, for creating those islands in the way and saving everyone's lives. But no, I think the answer, I'm not going to speak for Jason, but the answer is no right now. That intersection has at least 3 bridge decks that are joined by some magic of engineering. And almost nothing can go on top of it additionally without triggering basically the federal highway getting involved. So it's not impossible, and we can definitely consider things like flex posts to create, the delineation of space. I think the problem is once we get to material that really works, it's heavy. And heavy things on bridges make those state folks really, really anxious. Which is why we don't put things like Jersey barriers to separate bike lanes a lot of times on bridges and things, but we are trying to work with them to figure out anything moving forward, any experimental material or application for bridges like this, mostly across the pike. That's where we're kind of trying things out.
Great. Question online, Randy Stern. Love the increased path width being added westbound on Memorial Drive towards Magazine Beach. A question for DCR, can this please be extended to River Street? It is sorely needed. I suggest trying to alternate. Oh, I'm sorry, this is someone else, my moderator, telling me to alternate between. I believe we did, right? Well, being extended all the way to River Street, though. Was that answered?
Yeah, Ken, we're currently looking at that and
Right.
prioritizing the worst of the worst, working
Got
on
it.
permitting, and then seeing how that fits in to our spring maintenance project list.
Right. I mean, this is also talking about increase the path width too, in addition to the surface. So,
as well. Yep.
okay, great. Question over here. This way, and then we'll go to you, sir. Okay.
Hello. Thank you for the presentations tonight. I was wondering if someone could speak to the feasibility or infeasibility of making the bike lanes over the bridge a little wider, maybe 5.5 feet or 6 feet. I always see 10-foot car lanes, and I feel like a car could fit in a 9.5-foot lane. This might make the drivers drive slower, and it would make the people in the bike lane feel safer. So if someone could speak to that.
I can, because it was a hard learned lesson for me, because I asked the same question 2 years ago. It's buses. Buses need 10 feet. So that's the easy or the very quick answer. So I learned that I had the same exact thing happen to me, but yeah, it's for the buses. I'm going to go to online. We have a lot of online questions too, so we're going to go back and forth. Ronnie Schloss, I'm normally all in favor of flex posts or other physical protection, but to the point about children and bike lanes with the flex posts, I have a normal bike, not a cargo bike, and fitting into the narrow lane with the flex post on Harvard Ave in Coolidge Corner is pretty difficult. If I had a kiddo on a cargo bike, their little legs would probably hit the flex posts. So this is something I know, Peter, that you looked at a lot in terms of like the height of the flex posts and keeping them lower, not the traditional higher ones. Would that solve this problem?
Well, Ronnie's mentioning the children's legs, so that, they are low. The high, if you can keep your flex posts instead of being 4 feet high, have them 3 feet high, then they won't interfere with the handlebars. But just about every bike that's sold will fit into a 3-foot window. You can bring it through a 3-foot door. In the Netherlands, a place where I study, 3 feet, 1.5 meters, that is the maximum legal width for something to operate in a bike lane. So I think so between the flex post and the curb, right now it's a 5-foot lane. The flex post will be set back about 3 inches, so that'll leave you 4 feet 8 inches. And the widest bike is 3 feet, so that still gives you some room to sway. A bike has to sway to keep its balance, and it's going to be a little bit roomier than what you have on Harvard Street, because on Harvard Street the bike lane is actually 3 inches narrower than on the BU Bridge. So, and with bikes, every inch counts.
Okay. Yes, I believe the standard answer for speeding up compliance from like 9 months to shorter would be have a patrol car cruising around or stationed in the right spot. And wondering about, you were talking about collecting data from Cambridge, Brookline, and so on. But you might also ask for data from the MIT police and BU police, because they don't report things like, crashes necessarily, because they report them in their log, which is not coordinated. So is anybody at all interested in asking MIT or BU police for their crash reports?
Kaylin, do you know the answer to this question? Or does anybody know the answer?
As I understand it, the institutional cops don't do traffic violations. That's left to the districts. This would be D14 here in Boston.
Certain jurisdictions they don't, but certainly on Vassar Street, there's multiple reports that I've copied down on the log. So
Oh, interesting, yeah. Yeah, I think that's something good that the advocates can keep an eye on in terms of aggregating the data and making sure that all of the departments are talking to each other. And if they're not, we can, yeah. I think that to get back to another question about to limit violations, the senator mentioned this when he stepped up, and I think Rep. Conley did as well, as one of the advocacy pieces we're pursuing is automated enforcement, which is basically camera enforcement, which we do not have the legal authority to do in the state yet. So one ask maybe for everybody here who is able to advocate is to ask your rep and senator to help push along the ability for cities and towns and departments of the state to do camera enforcement, and then we can start to at least log what these violations are looking like without needing a police officer resource on every corner.
And infrastructure is the way to solve most problems, not enforcement. If we have better infrastructure, hopefully we don't need enforcement, but there's always going to be people not doing what they should be doing. So a couple more questions. We're getting a little bit long in the tooth in terms of time, so maybe a few more questions. So here we've got 1, 2, we've got 3, we've got a few online. So let's maybe ask pretty quick questions and we'll get quick answers. So.
On the topic of flex posts, I was wondering if you look at the pictures from earlier about Longfellow and I believe Cambridge Street, the flex posts are actually, I think, offset by a couple inches for like inside the bike lane. I was wondering why can't you put those on the line? They're out like, yeah. And also,
the answer is simply survival. If you want those flex posts to survive, you just got to move a little bit more into the bike space, out of the car space. That's the simple reason.
Hi, moments ago, there was mentioning about stronger consideration into the spring about westbound on Memorial Drive, considering moving the one lane all the way to River Street. Please lose that thought. Don't bother, don't waste your time. For so many of us that live in this neighborhood over in that area, it's impossible to get out of this neighborhood. You're going to restrict it even further? Please reconsider.
Thank you for that perspective. Brooke, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to clarify that I think the discussion tonight about that section of River Street west of Magazine Beach is about improving the existing, within the existing roadway.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I don't think that's the conversation that's happening right now.
Yeah, if I could just jump in. So that question was just about the Paul Dudley White path. So the off-street bike path, taking a good look at it and widen it and improving it in areas from the BU Road right to River Street. So it had, my understanding was that the ask was not about vehicular lanes. It was about just the Paul Dudley White path, which is what we're looking into.
Great. Question, Judy Knegal. My question is about a stop sign for drivers in the traffic circle turning left under the underpass. When drivers are going straight off the BU Bridge, they should have the right of way. I don't know if I'm understanding that. So stop sign for drivers in the traffic circle turning left under the underpass. I don't understand that one. I don't know if anyone here does.
I'm guessing they're referring to drivers coming eastbound from Memorial Drive that are trying to turn. No, so they're coming eastbound and wanting to go north and saying that perhaps I'm guessing here that those people should have some kind of stop sign or something so that traffic coming off of the BU Bridge can have the right of way is my interpretation of what this person is saying.
The quick answer is that makes sense, and maybe DCR can look at that. Any further questions here in the audience? I think it was one person.
So recently the Mass Ave Bridge was redesigned in 2021, and it kind of included space reallocation. So it went from 4 car lanes to 2, and there was really nice spaced out protected bike facilities included. That have been a really big success. Why is space reallocation not on the table for a bridge like this, which is very similar?
So there was a major space reallocation in 2009 or 2010. So it went from 4 lanes to 3. So those of us who are older remember that and are very grateful for that. To take it down to only 1 lane per direction, that's something that could be looked at. But the reason it's 2 lanes for traffic going out there is because there's a dual right turn lane coming off of Com Ave because of all the traffic coming from Park Drive in Boston and Carlton Street and Brookline. So there's this heavy S weave going through there, and getting them all through in 1 lane would be difficult. But yeah, this is the time to look into things like that. So thank you for that push.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question from somebody who hasn't asked a question. So yeah, I think we got to limit it to people who haven't asked questions. I think we are good. It's almost 8 o'clock. I think we should stop here, but I want to thank everybody for participating.
Actually,
robust Q&A. Thank you for our, oops, sorry.
I think Katie's most recent question,
Oh.
is there a fixed date for this plan? Is a good one to end with, but also how people can get in touch if they want to ask more questions, learn more, etc., is a good thing to read
Sure.
as well.
Sorry, I didn't see Katie's question. So yeah, so if people want to stay in touch, so the Alliance, there's a sign-up sheet, which is not going to help the people online. People online, you can just email me, kencarlson8@gmail.com. Maybe you can pop that into the chat, Crystal. And yeah, there's a sign-up sheet here. Come talk to me. So the Alliance, when we first put this together, I didn't form a Google group. I thought we would just have this meeting on Calendar. So I keep copying the emails on Calendar from meeting to meeting. We're now 2 years in. We're going to stay together until we see everything through. So maybe we'll form that Google group. But I'm happy to take anyone's email address, and we send out emails like once a month or so to keep people updated. So I'll just get in touch with me. I want to thank the officials.
And about the timeline, let me just so what the work the DCR is doing now, they'll finish that up this fall. For the restriping coming toward Boston and here in the signals here, that might be done this fall if they can get the striping done before the winter comes. If not, it'll be done early in the spring. The rest of the work, DCR is inclined to do it. They're like, yep, we like the idea, but whatever their budgeting and scheduling process is, they can't give a hard commitment. So we're trusting that they're our friends and they care about this. They've told us they do, and we have every reason to believe them. So we're hopeful that the rest of those things will happen next year, but there's no commitment to that effect.
Thanks everyone. Thank you for our officials and hardworking engineers and non-engineers. So thanks very much, guys, and appreciate you being out here and helping us advocate too.